Big Mom's house. Big Mama's house. Welcome to Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Yeah. Big Mama's house. Welcome to Big Mama's house. Big Mama's house. Yeah.
Welcome back to Big Mama's house, y'all. I am Mama, and I welcome you all here today. We are going to be talking about chapter 3 of the Sister Wives book called Becoming Sister Wives, the story of an unconventional marriage. This third chapter is about Christine when they met in their little romance. Before we get started, I just want to just a little disclaimer. I have really bad allergies today. The meds are not helping that much. So if you hear me sniffling or coughing, I apologize. My voice has been going in and out because of my throat. And also, I'm not used to talking this much, honestly. Um, so I guess you guys are helping me build up my vocal cords and all that good stuff again. So here we go. Ready? Chapter 3, Christine. Um, she was raised in a polygamous family. Um, unlike Mary and Janelle, whose parents came into the faith of polygamous marriage after they were born. Um, so that's a little bit different point of view for her. And she says, "My grandfather was the head of our church. You can say that when it comes to our church, I'm connected." Well, we've all kind of heard that already. But I don't think until the book came out and people actually was like reading it and putting like things together throughout the seasons of the show that it really, wasn't really something that people were too much aware of, and how that played a part maybe in how Christine came into their family. Um, she says the biggest influence on her decision to live the principle of plural marriage was her grandmother. She loved having sister wives and knew the strongest relationship in her marriage was with them. And it's interesting when she says her grandmother and not her mother, because you would think that in a child's life, their parents' marriage would be the biggest influence, but I guess not so much. And we'll find out more about that here in a minute. Um, she knew she only wanted to be a third wife. And she says, "I wanted sister wives as much as I wanted a husband." I kind of believe that because, as we'll find out, Christine was very lively and bubbly and, had a lot of energy and was very positive. And, and again, these girls were very, very, very sheltered, very emotionally and physically, like, as far as knowing about bodies and how they work, very, undereducated. And so why would she want a husband when she didn't understand about, especially having a good maternal influence in her life, like her mother and her grandmother? Obviously, the relationship with the husband in those marriages was not that good because she goes on about how her grandmother, loved her sister wives, but nothing about her grandfather and how she felt about him and how their relationship was. So that makes sense to me that, the husband wasn't that big of a deal in her mind before she was married. And she says, "In my opinion, being the first wife takes too much work and involves too much self-sacrifice. You have to give up your life entirely and be joined at the hip to your husband. It's just you and your husband until the day he marries a second wife. This kind of single-minded devotion never appealed to me. I'm independent and I like my freedom." Other than Mary, who, as we know, is very shy and insecure and awkward, um, Janelle and Christine were more independent. Um, and they thought that, like the relationship with the man wasn't quite as important as the sister wife relationship. And she says the second wife has the hardest job and is put in the most uncomfortable position because she's the one who comes along and disrupts the marriage of the first wife and her husband. And it's interesting to me that she thinks that, just because you get married and you're a monogamous, that you have to be joined at the hip and do every single thing together and never, do anything, on your own. And that's not a healthy concept of what marriage is either, because you can still be independent and have freedom and have a wonderful marriage to a man without other wives. And she says about the second wife, she's the wedge that comes between the couple. That's an interesting thought, because like you think that in the sister wife world, you know, obviously each wife has a different role and the perspective is different, but she considers it being a wedge. And why would a monogamous married couple choose to take on more wives, but yet the women think that that's a wedge? I mean, that to me is um a little bit of a opposite thing. I'm sorry, my brain is not working at it, you guys. I apologize. It's a little bit of an oxymoron, right? So that then doesn't make a lot of sense to me. A lot of these things don't. Um, but the third wife, she says, is the lucky one. She makes peace between the first two wives. She doesn't have to face marriage on her own without the help from sister wives or bear the burden of breaking up a previously monogamous couple. Doesn't have to face marriage on her own without the help of sister wives. Again, that just shows the lack of knowledge and, you know, about how marriage really works between a man and a woman, even if it's monogamous. That's a little strange to me. And so she goes on about how she met Cody at a church function. She says Cody and Mary were new to our group, which is why I'd never heard of them before. As it turned out, Mary had been a member for years. She'd even been over to my house on several occasions, but no one had noticed her until she married Cody. That right there gives me, I suppose, trouble for Mary, because she has no identity other than being Cody's wife. And that is not a good place for anyone to be, because you need to have a sense of self. You need to have a little independence and a little bit of freedom to, I think, it's like to be a more well-rounded person, maybe. I don't know. Okay, now this is Cody's perspective. And they're at this, again, a church function, and he says, there was one girl who caught my eye, Christine. She was wearing a turquoise dress with a lace ruffle at the collar. She was bubbly and sweet and as cute as anyone I'd ever seen before. Recall that. Remember, he thinks she's so cute. She was also overflowing with positivity. Her liveliness and good cheer were infectious. However, I was still a newlywed and new to the polygamous faith. Although I thought Christine was really cute, I wasn't ready yet to consider a second wife. Okay, so obviously this is after marrying Mary and before uh, courting Janelle. And he's going on about how cute he thought Christine was. But he's said it on several occasions on the show, and maybe even later in the book here, that there was no physical attraction for him to Christine. So, again, which is bullshit. And I tend to think that usually the more negative the response is, usually the more truth. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to say something mean in a book, especially one that when you're just coming out and wanting people to like you. Um, but yeah, over the years, the truth has come out a bit, and it makes me really, really, really sad for Christine. And he says here, he goes, she was just 19 and she was a romantic, but there was an undeniable spark between us. Again, this does not jive with what he has said on multiple occasions. It drives me nuts. And he says, I was awed with how adorable and upbeat she was. And this, he goes, Mary and I were newlyweds and still very much a couple in love. This made it difficult for me to hang out with my buddies because it would mean leaving her alone. What's wrong with that? Why can't she just have a chill out at home day or go out to lunch with a friend or her mom or, you know, with. Why is it bad to leave her alone? I don't understand, like, the constant need to be together all the time. I mean, newlyweds in love, I get you want to do everything together, but it's not like a requirement. I just don't understand. Okay. And it says, eventually, Christine and Mary became friends. Okay. So, according to this book, Mary and Janelle were friends. And then Mary and Christine were friends. But yet, there's so much drama that happens later between the three of them. And I don't understand if they were friends and had a friendship, why was it so difficult for them to communicate and compromise and, you know, kind of try to come together cohesively as a team? Again, hopefully some of these will be answered as we go on. It says, if Christine and I started hanging out alone, in essence, if we were to start courting, Mary would be abandoned by her two closest friends. Abandoned. Again, Mary can't go hang out with friends or go to a church function or, hang out with family or, I don't know, go get a pedicure or something. You know what I mean? It doesn't make any sense. And she said, he says, Mary had inadvertently made it clear to me on several occasions that she wasn't prepared to court Christine. Okay, so she's kind of putting the nix on it. She's not quite ready. Okay, now we're back to Christine's perspective. If I can turn the page, y'all. I am not having a really organized day today, and I am so sorry. Give me one sec here. There you go. I guess I didn't have anything important to say about Christine's perspective again. So we're back to Cody, okay? And this is talk about going on a drive for a function again. And it says, Mary often stood on the sidelines during games and group activities, but Christine was always willing to participate in anything, no matter how silly. Okay, you married this woman. You've been married for a while now. You know that she's shy and a little bit socially awkward and doesn't make friends easy. So why don't you try to, pull her in and make her a part of it and help her open up a little bit, instead of just running off without her and, in essence, abandoning her? Just saying. And he says, Christine was the cutest girl in the world, although she was a little chubby. This, I don't even know what to say. Janelle, whom, you already know he marries not too long after this, was a heftier girl. Okay? Nothing wrong with that. I'm a hefty girl. My husband thinks I'm awesome, and I don't understand though that all he has to make a point in this book that she was a little chubby, despite him already saying like how much he thought she was so cute and awesome or whatever. And then he goes, on the way they got caught up and they were driving late at night and stuff happened. And he says, but the sight of this chubby girl in my car devouring chili cheese nachos for breakfast put the brakes on our relationship. I'm sorry, that's just gross. Cody Brown, you're disgusting. That one little thing there, I mean, it's like, you must not have thought much of her personally, if that's all it took. Okay? That's it. And so this is to me where it comes back to where I think the fact that her being quote unquote a little bit connected in their church is what drew him to her more than anything. Because obviously he wasn't attracted to her. He may have thought she was a cute person and whatever and liked her personality. But there's no, like, he said that there was a spark between them. My ass, okay? If chili cheese nachos is all it takes to kill a spark for someone that you tend to, like, want to hang out with and spend time with and like her so much, you're gross. That's all I gotta say about that. And I hope y'all agree with me. If you don't, I'm happy to hear your opinions, but my mind will not change about the fact that I think he's gross. Now we're back to Christine. She says, I had become very close to Cody's sister. So she spent the summer at the Browns ranch with the sister. And he goes on to say, or she goes on to say, sorry, they were talking after this, the ranch summer and everything, and they told Christine that they were courting a girl that Christine had introduced them to, and she was just devastated. She goes, I broke off the friendship. I couldn't be around Cody and Mary while they were courting someone else. So obviously, Christine was, she felt completely different about the situation than Cody. She really liked them as a couple. She liked them individually. She liked Cody. She thought he was cute and all this awesome stuff, and saw how good he supposedly treated Mary. And so, yeah, her little 19-year-old heart was broken. And she says, my parents told me they were getting a divorce. So all this is happening at the same time for poor Christine. And she said, my mother had decided to leave our faith. Which, okay, this is where I'm thinking that's probably the grandmother was the bigger influence in the polygamous lifestyle, because obviously her mother wasn't happy. And I don't know why. Another one of those things that they mention and then glossed over and never talk about again. But why? I want to know why. Why did she leave the faith? Why did she leave her husband? What was so wrong? And why didn't those things send up a red flag to Christine? You know what I mean? Um, I don't know. Those are just the questions that are in my mind as I read this book. Um, and she says, I was so shaken by my parents' divorce that I wanted to make sure I was solid in my faith before I committed myself to someone else. That right there, and then they all say it at some point. But it's a little, it sounds really mature and grounded, but they're taking time to think things over is usually like 2 days. You know what I mean? It's like, for me, I would need, when I say time, I need months, you know, weeks at least, to like really figure out where I'm at and to get that, make sure that feelings are real and not just, oh, giddy with excitement from a infatuation. And she says, but Mary and I still talked on the phone from time to time, even though she broke off the friendship. Okay. It had been prolonged. Okay, the courtship with this other girl had been prolonged because Cody and Mary wanted to wait for the girl they were courting to turn 18 before making their engagement official. So Cody Brown at this point is 23, 24, something like that years old, and he's courting a 17-year-old girl. That's not, isn't, didn't they say that they don't believe in underage marriage and all that? And I understand that they're waiting till make the engagement official till you turn 18. But what 17-year-old makes the best life decisions? Okay? And why would you want someone so young and immature and unformed? You know what I mean? Especially, you have to think that in that lifestyle, a 17-year-old is really more like a 12-year-old, like emotionally and mentally, and again, knowledge wise, because they don't know anything. And so she goes on to say, Cody called her up and said, Christine, he says, Janelle is driving me crazy. I can't stand it. She really frustrates me. And she's like, what? And she says, the next thing I knew, he and Mary had married Janelle. Of course, I knew this was really weird because Cody had told me that she was driving him crazy. It took me a while to realize what kind of crazy Cody had meant. So he's calling up Christine, and he knows that is in love with him. And he's decided to put the nosh on it because, she likes nachos in the morning. And, this heftier girl, whenever he's acting like she's so gross for being a little chubby, has calling this girl saying, hey, she's making me crazy. I can't wait for the wedding. Ooh, yeah. I wrote next to that paragraph, ew, because ew, right? Okay, back to Cody. It says, Uh, this is after he married Janelle. He goes, I was used to the gregarious, bubbly Christine, but when she showed up that evening, I immediately sensed an underlying sadness and turmoil within her. Duh. I mean, You know she digs you, dude, and you just married someone else out of the blue. Okay. And he says, Christine felt that she could be open and honest with me once more. I felt the old spark that had always been between us ignite again. What? Is this some sort of hero complex where she's so sad and distraught and, he can make it better? And when she opened up to him, he felt like the biggest, strongest man in the world because he fixed it. And that is gross. Okay? Gross. If taking advantage of her in her emotional state made you have a spark, there's something wrong with you. I'm sorry. And he says, I didn't tell her at the time, but I had a feeling that the man she would marry was going to be me. This one chapter is, it makes me crazy because he goes between, I like her, she's awesome, to, ew, she's grody. Back to, she's connected and I want to be connected. And I think she's the way to get me there. Right? Anybody else sensing that a little bit? Okay. Back to Christine. She says, it's not goodbye, Cody said. It's au revoir. Cody's line was cheesy, but it sent a current of electricity down my spine. He was flirting with me. Poor Christine. And then she says, Mary's family encouragement was too much for me because Mary's family was encouraging her to, wink, wink, nod, nod, you and Cody, ha. And she goes, I've always been a little dramatic. Well, obviously, we know that. And that's one of the things we like about Christine. She's fun. And he says, Cody asked me to dance over and over again. And this is at the New Year's ball. Okay. So I guess it's like their biggest event, maybe. And she says, of all the guys I know, you are the one I'd want to marry, she tells Cody. I immediately approached my grandfather, who was the head of our church. Should Cody Brown ask, I said, tell him that the answer is yes. Let him know that I definitely want to be a part of his family. That's all it took. A little cheesy line and a couple dances, and this girl was ready to marry him. That is their life. That is their culture, and that is so scary and sad. Okay. Back to Cody's perspective. He says, Christine's father was aware of how she glowed when we were together. He was also aware of how she had pushed all other boys to the sidelines in favor of me. He wanted her to be happy, and now he knew that she made me happy. Christine just loves you, her father said. She just loves you, and all of her innocence. Couple things occur to me, and he says other boys, not men. I mean, is he not considering himself a man at this age? I mean, because technically, let's be real, they are boys. I don't think many of them ever really grow up. But that was an interesting choice of words there for me. And I would love to know, and I think her father has since passed away, which is very sad. But I would love to know what he thinks of Cody now and of the situation now. Because he approved of Cody so much. And now I'm just like, I wonder if you would want to kick his ass for how he treated your little girl. I'm curious. And he says, it's a testament to Christine's outgoing nature and wonderful personality that people do not judge her for her beliefs. Because she was open and honest about being in a polygamous lifestyle at her work. And he says, Janelle was very sweet and accepting of my courtship with Christine. I knew that things were difficult between her and Mary in the house, and I believe she was hoping for a new sister wife to be her ally or friend. Okay, right there it says, he says, I believed she was hoping for a new sister wife. And my thought is, doesn't he talk to his wives? Doesn't he know anything about what they want or need or are hoping for? Like, I know their jobs weren't taking up a whole lot of time at the time. Maybe Janelle's was. But again, it was just the three of them because there weren't any children yet. So why didn't they talk to each other? I just don't understand that. And then he goes on and says, Mary was slightly more prickly when I started courting Christine. However, she liked Christine and was aware of how close the two of us were. I'm sure, as far as Mary was concerned, bringing Christine into the family was just a matter of time. And my thought was, didn't Mary need a friend or ally too? Obviously she and Janelle were having issues, which again I don't understand because they were friends, right? Friends. And now Mary and Christine are supposed to be friends. But there's these issues and he's not picking up on it or not giving a shit. I'm not really sure. But that one whole paragraph in the two parts there is just so, there's so much there. I mean, it's crazy. And then he goes, it wasn't what I'd call romantic. Christine was quite puritanical in her view of romance and courtship. He says, I think we held hands and maybe hugged once or twice, but that was it. But isn't that the way the church teaches their young people or their courting people to behave? To not, give it away before the big day kind of thing. And I know that, yes, it's probably a little puritanical not to even give a little kiss or something on when you're courting or even got engaged. But again, her grandfather was out of the church. There was a lot of expectations of her. And if she didn't follow the rules, then how would they expect other people to do it? And so I think he's kind of he says I don't think he approved of it at all. Let's be real. The way he says it, it wasn't what I'd call romantic. You can't be chaste and be romantic. That to me speaks a lot more about him and his hormones than anything else. He says, I wanted to prolong our engagement, but Christine didn't want to. She believed that a long courtship would be inappropriate and unfair to her new sister wives. She didn't want to be running around with a married man. Christine felt that she'd already waited so long. We'd been friends for 3 years. We decided to get married in 6 weeks. Okay. I understand Christine's being very thoughtful and considerate towards her sister wives. However, they'd been friends for 3 years, right? You're kidding me. All the trouble with communication and not supposedly knowing each other, understanding each other, and all these things. Again, Marion and Christine had obviously been friends for 3 years too, because he couldn't hang out with single women as a married man without his wife around. So again, all these people claim to be friends and know each other, but then obviously it's all very superficial because when it comes down to the real important things, none of them had any clue who each other was. And he goes, he realized that he had once again acted too quickly. I was in over my head. I was not even 25. I already had 2 wives, and Janelle was expecting our first child. I'm afraid that I showed up at our wedding with what Christine calls a 1,000-yard stare. Suddenly, I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I was nervous and apprehensive. Okay, and again, totally understand that, right? I mean, that is a lot. But again, those are choices that he made, and I don't know why, if he is having such issues, he would take on a third wife. It doesn't make any sense to me. Again, unless it's because Christine was connected. I can't think of another reason. And he goes on to say, I knew there was a lot about my life that Christine didn't understand. Really, you think? She didn't know how tense things were between Mary and Janelle and hadn't had much opportunity to get to know them herself. I thought she was good friends with Mary for 3 years, right? I understand Janelle was like more into working and not so much into like socializing maybe as much. And it's not like he couldn't because it was their church and he knew he had 2 wives. So why wasn't he taking both wives to social functions? I don't understand it. A lot of this stuff doesn't make sense to me. And if why didn't she know? Okay, yeah, I understand 6 weeks is a short engagement, but you can talk a lot in 6 weeks. Okay? You can make opportunities for Janelle to get to know Christine, right? There are so many ways and means of getting things done, but he just takes such a passive stance to everything. He's like, oh, well, they don't know each other. They'll figure it out. They're all going to live together and, it'll be fine. Whatever. And he says, when I proposed, I was working at a job that was crushing my soul. Mary and Janelle were miserable with each other, and I didn't know how to negotiate a truce between them. That's very, very honest. He didn't know how. He has no emotional maturity. He's very self-centered, and all he cares about is other people's perception of him. And when it came to the relationships with his wives, I think he just, again, a very lazy stance. He was just like, oh, it'll work out. I don't need to put any effort. It's fine. And he says, what I didn't know then was that Christine would become a major factor in our success as a family. Her kindness and her positive nature brokered a peace in our household. Christine saved our bacon, as I like to say. She saved the Browns. And yet, all these years later, you talk about how she's always so dramatic and always so, only about herself and only wants relationship with you and not her sister wives. And I think you are so full of shit. And it's revisionist history because you didn't pay attention to what was going on in your home. You didn't care about what's happening when you weren't around. As long as things were cool and peaceful when you were in the room, that's all that mattered to you, right, Cody Brown? Right. Let's see. He says, I didn't have time to plan a honeymoon. Again, dude, you had 6 weeks. What the fuck? Okay, just lazy. It says, in fact, it didn't even occur to me to plan one. No one told me that I should. Are you serious? Okay. I have so much to say about this. Number one, it didn't occur to him. You've been married twice in 3 years, dude. You took them both on honeymoons. And you didn't plan the other two either. You got in your car and you drove because you're broke. And don't get me wrong, I got no problem with that. I've talked a lot on our show about how Papa and I have to have like super cheap dates and get creative to figure out ways to spend time together and whatever. But what? What? And then he said, the most honest thing Cody Brown has ever said in his entire life. No one told him he should. So I guess it was Mary and Janelle who brought up the honeymoon for their weddings. I don't understand. Did they plan it and you just sit back and do nothing? I I really need to know. Someone, girls, write a book. Write another book and give me all these gory details, answer all my questions because I don't understand what you saw in him. I don't. Okay. Well, then he says, we got in the car and drove to Montana. It was a tense trip. I wasn't my most cheerful self. We hadn't had time to get used to each other. 3 years, people. 3 years. Courted for 6 weeks. And I know that's not a long time, but it's exhausting. This book is exhausting. Last bit of this chapter. Christine's perspective. I was shaken when Cody showed up at our wedding with that look on his face. He was morose. I was even more devastated when I learned he hadn't planned a honeymoon. I was hoping that we'd finally have a romantic getaway, something special that told me how thrilled he was to have me in the family. I was young and naive. I had no idea how to tell Cody what I wanted from him. Okay, again, this is like the super honesty, okay, because none of them had the emotional range or the communication skills to tell any of them what they wanted from each other or needed. And they were all very, very young and immature because of the culture they were brought up in. And she says, on our honeymoon, a drive to the sticks of Montana, I was struck by the realization that I didn't know Cody very well. 3 years! What? He seemed distant and unreachable. I didn't know how to talk to him about what he was feeling. I had no idea how to reach out to him. I just sat there in silence. Watching him drive with that look on his face made me unbearably sad. I realized that I had no idea how to express my feelings with him or ask him to share his with me. Christine, thank you for that. Yes, so honest and explains a lot. It really does. She says, like many young women, I had idealized marriage. I was fixated on the idea of happily ever after. I thought marriage, especially plural marriage, would be absolute bliss. I didn't understand that marriage is something you must work on. I didn't know that true love isn't instantaneous, but something that develops over time. Um, that's because you get married before you're ready, like emotionally and intellectually even. And uh also because you can't fuck until you're married. And I honestly think that is the biggest driving factor in a lot of these um especially young marriages or marriages that are very, very short courtships and engagements because it's the hormones, you know? And don't get me wrong, I was young and infatuated and in love, um, but it's not something I would rather my child have premarital sex and get pregnant and have a child to raise the rest of her life than get married to someone who had no clue who she was and had no clue or interest in keeping her happy, like, and being a true partner to them. Um, so that's my thoughts on it. Please, guys, let me know what you're thinking. We're going to be doing chapter 4 coming up next, and this is all about Sob and Robin. And I have so many thoughts on this chapter. So bear with me, y'all, and I hope y'all will come back and see us again soon. Drop by Big Mama's house anytime because you're always welcome. Please remember to use your turn signals, be kind, spay and neuter your pets, and buckle up. Bye.